Welcome into this episode of Coach's Corner. Jordan Woodruff with you. Glad to have you along. This episode brought to you by Winter Round Tally Architects, and we're joined by head boys basketball coach Jacob Birndaum. The season is over, as we know. We wish it wasn't, but what do you think after your first year as a head coach? What was the experience like for you?
Man, it was a big learning experience. Just all the behind the scenes stuff that I wasn't necessarily privy to before the start of this season, but all the paperwork and everything that goes into getting us where we need to be, getting us on time, making sure we have meals after the game, all of that stuff. The basketball stuff, that's what I enjoy, and that's really the easy part. Is just everything else that comes with running a program.
Yeah, and one thing I say with coaches, one thing that you do to preach success is do the little things right. And you have to be an example of that. And doing the little things right means is that housekeeping and bookkeeping and things like that. So I know when I talk to people, you slide over to that head coaching job, even though you saw the guy that was a predecessor do it, you're not ready for it until you get a year of it.
Yeah, it's definitely a whole different beast just being in there and having the responsibility of getting all of that done. But I just want to give a big shout out to my assistant coaches, Coach Shellhorst, Coach Boone, and Coach Fincher. They did a real good job of helping me out, helping me get some stuff done behind the scenes when I needed to direct my energy elsewhere, and they were a big help of just making sure this season ran smoothly.
Yeah, in the first year, you want to set a tone for what is to come. And, the wins maybe didn't come like you wanted them to, but you're laying a foundation. And do you feel like you laid that foundation going forward into future seasons?
We feel like we did. One thing that we really wanted to get back to was having some kind of defensive identity. And at the beginning of the season, I felt like we really had a strong one. Kind of slipped up a little bit through the middle part of the year, but we stressed that and we addressed it. And I feel like the guys did a great job of getting back to that, by the end of the season. And that's something that we definitely hope to continue to build on going into next year.
What is one or a couple of things that you feel like you guys need to be better at as well? And that can be whether it be getting less technical fouls. I mean, that was a problem this year, of course, or you want to shoot the ball better. Of course, that's always the thing. But what are the things, and that goes into the foundational type stuff. What are some of those things that you feel like you can build a stronger foundation and really want to work on in the off season?
The biggest thing that we're trying to stress right now, and we're just trying to implement this by making practice, difficult, putting guys in adverse situations, is just building our mental toughness and continuing to add to that aspect of our game. I'm sure most people that watched us this year felt like we were competitive with a lot of the teams we played, and we had a really difficult schedule.
Yes.
We had a beast of a schedule, and not too many teams really rolled us over. We were competitive in most games up through the third quarter, up through the fourth, but there's just like that little hump that we're trying to get over where when we got hit with adversity, sometimes we didn't respond to it in the best way, and it's a culture thing. We haven't been very successful over the past few seasons, really past couple decades when you go back to it. So our kids aren't necessarily expecting to win when it's almost like they're comfortable playing behind because that's what they've always done, that's what they've always seen. So just getting into that mindset that when we step on the floor, we expect to win, we're going to fight through adversity, and just not making any excuses.
Well, we talked about that. You're right. I mean, you look at most of the games this year and those double-digit losses, there was a point in the game at various points in different contests where you give up a 12-0 run, you give up a 16-0 run. And that is once thing you're trying to get culture, it's like, okay, they've gone on this. Who's going to step up and make that play and stop this and get that momentum maybe stop for you guys? So that's something that, it's a work in progress. It sounds easy to say, but it's a lot harder to do.
And that's exactly the point, It's real easy in those situations, and the thing that we tended to do is, we hit that adverse situation, and it's like everyone starts to do their own thing. It's I have to hit this shot.
Yeah.
I have to do what I can to get us out of this run. And it should never be an I situation. It's always what can we do or what can I do to help us, not necessarily a single player just going out and making the play. It's something that an issue we got to tackle as a team, as a group.
All right, one thing that's interesting, you start looking ahead to next year, and you hope that you build on what maybe you started and you start seeing those results. But there's, of course, you look at the seniors you lost. I mean, these were key contributors, and, a generational guy like Tay Moore, but not to mention, Cooper Rich did some great things for you, Rayson Fisher, Elijah Kreisel. I mean, these are seniors that you relied on, and it's going to be interesting because now some of these younger guys, they're really going to have to step up because those guys aren't going to be there.
Absolutely, but we're gonna miss those guys immensely, especially Tay. We're hoping he gets an All-State selection this year. I'm fighting for that because he had an outstanding career, an outstanding season.
And not only that, he played against some really, really good athletes this year across the schedule, and you didn't get the wins maybe you wanted as a team. And Tay probably would say, "I'd rather have that team win," knowing how he is, but
100%.
He took on some of the best players in the state, and he hung right there with them, and a lot of times outplayed them.
Went toe to toe with them, and like I told him, I felt like every night we had a chance because I felt like I had the best guy on the floor. Whether we're playing against a guy that's signed somewhere to go play basketball or has a ranking next to his name, none of that mattered because I know, the kind of competitor and the talent that Tay really had. So he gave us a shot every night. And then those other seniors, man, just big shout out to them. They brought it. I didn't make things easy for them all the time, but they bought into what we were selling. They really worked hard. They got after it, and they didn't quit the entire year.
Yeah, and we saw some of the younger guys and, really step up. I mean, I think not too young, but A.J. Landis is a guy you're going to have to rely on going forward. He, I think, got better as the season progressed, but there are going to be quite a few of those guys. They got a little bit of playing time, but that's going to step up a little bit when you go into next year.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But we're really happy with some of the progress that some of those guys made, and we think we have some of the sophomores, and they'll be juniors next year, and a couple of our juniors that'll be seniors next year, ready to step into those responsibilities. Because if you look at a lot of the guys that played this year, we had seniors, but they didn't have a lot of playing experience.
Right.
Virtually everybody outside of Tay hadn't really got any meaningful varsity minutes before. Right. So even though we had 6 seniors, we were really a very young team. And that's something we'll have even more experience coming back next year because you look at AJ played in 80% of our possessions this year. And he's never really played that point guard spot before, so it was a little bit uncomfortable for him, an adjustment to him, but we really liked the progress that he made. Zayden Stoll played virtually no varsity minutes last year.
Right.
Came in, started a lot of our games, played in about 60% of the possessions. Adriel Miller and Jackson Dugash were 2 of our starters by the end of the year,
right.
So they'll be coming back as sophomores. Trent Jackson also saw a little bit of time. He was a contributor on varsity as well. So we have, 5 or 6 guys that they'll be coming in with some varsity playing time under their belts. They've been through some of those close games, so hopefully some of the lessons that we learned this year will carry over into success next year.
Me and you love defense, but one of the best defensive players of all time once told me it's all about the buckets, right? And
Yeah.
that was Tody Allen. You're going to have guys emerge to get you buckets. That's the big thing now, especially with Tay's departure. These guys that are sophomores and juniors that have played, and maybe you find somebody else that steps up along the way too. But you can't just go and replace 25 points a game, maybe with one guy. But as a group, these guys can make up for that and maybe get a little bit more if they progress.
Absolutely. This year, and I think it's going to be even better for the balance of our team. After the first 4 or 5 games, everyone knows what we're trying to accomplish. They know who the ball is going to. And I felt like some of the other guys kind of had a tendency to just pass the ball to Tay and watch. And it's
Right.
easy to do that when you have such a talented offensive player. But I really believe, like you said, next year, it's not one guy that's going to step up and be scoring 25 points. But if we have a couple guys that are scoring 10 to 12, 15 points a game, getting more balanced scoring, and I think their confidence will continue to improve as well because, like I said, they're like, should I shoot this shot or no? Let me just try to get the ball to Tay.
Yeah.
And it's it can feel like a crutch sometimes when you have that player. But now that they're not going to have that crutch to lean on, some of those guys are really going to have to step up and be comfortable being aggressive.
Yeah, and I guess the last thing to mention, one thing I noticed, you talked about you played pretty well early. You had like the lulls in the middle, and that's just I think every team goes through that and some adversity once you get in the flow of things. But it felt like you played good ball late. You didn't get the wins, but you were right there knocking on the door to get a few wins late in the season. And that's a good testament to what you want. You want to be playing your best ball. And a lot of that was because some of those underclassmen did step up all of a sudden. So that gives you a lot of promise going into, I think, the 24-25 season.
Absolutely, it's a lot of excitement, when have exit meetings with some of the guys that are coming back next year. Even though we're all a little bit disappointed with the win-loss record and how that showed at the end of the year, like we were talking about before we started filming, like we have some guys that are really hungry.
Yeah.
Really, they've bought into what we've been telling them. They believe in the program that we're selling them, and they want to get better. They want to be successful. So Coach Boone and Coach Shellhorse have been doing a great job we've already started our off-season program a little bit. We've had a couple of those sophomores that I've seen, because I've moved on to track, but
yeah,
I've been coming through the gym and they're staying till 4:35, getting shots up, working out with Coach Boone, who, man, he's just a great asset for our coaching staff, because he's not very big. He's comparable in size to a lot of the guys we had, but he was able to play at a very high level and succeed in college. And so just for him to bring his knowledge, pass that on, and then they've been playing a lot of one-on-one too, and for those guys to have to guard somebody of that caliber, it's only going to continue to get them better and sharpen up their skills.
Yeah, well, I'm excited about the future and see what we can get going. And like I said, we'll be talking more, and we'll talk more when we get closer to the season, probably next school year. And you'll have a better feel of things. There'll be some football guys you won't get yet, of course, probably when we start talking. But the only thing you can hope for is just advance what your vision of Ponca City basketball is, and that is a winning program.
Absolutely. Brick by brick, step by step. It's a uphill battle, but we're not taking any shortcuts. There's no elevator on the way to success. You got to take the stairs, and that's something that we're stressing as a program, and we're trying to impart to our players. It's just little by little every day. Those little things are what's going to get us our main goal in the end.
And that's especially true here in Ponca City. It's with the 6A schedule that you face and some of the athletes you face, not just basketball but all sports. You have to work your tail off to get to that level and win. So it's challenging for coaches, challenging for players, and all you can do is go to work, and you may not sometimes be as talented as everybody else, but you can't outwork them.
Absolutely. We play best competition in the state, so we got to not make any excuses. And that's one of the other absolute things we stress is it takes what it takes. And we're going to do what it takes to try to be successful. We're not going to make excuses for why we can't get there. We're just going to put our heads down, get to work, and carry on the blue-collar tradition that this community has really had for a while.
Certainly so. Well, Jacob, appreciate the time, man. And like I said, looking forward to what you do in your second season after having 1 year under your belt. So that's Coach Jacob Birndaum. That's going to do it for us on this episode of Coach's Corner. Jordan Woodruff saying so long, and until next time, go Cats.